When they returned from their honeymoon, Philip looked at Elizabeth and said, "I realize this marriage was a mistake." The Queen had never been so humiliated. But this was just the beginning, because the real war that began at Buckingham Palace would forever change two strong characters. On the night of November 20th, 1947, after the magnificent wedding ceremony at Westminster Abbey, the whole world thought they had witnessed a fairy tale love story. The marriage of Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip was called the love of the century. But reality wasn't that romantic. When their honeymoon in Malta ended and they returned to London, 22-year-old Elizabeth and 26-year-old Philip faced a complete royal protocol machine. Their every step was watched, every word analyzed, every decision evaluated for royal appropriateness. On the first night, when they settled into their private quarters at Clarence House, Philip looked out the window and said, "Elizabeth, have we come to a prison?" Elizabeth was surprised by her husband's question. "Philip, this is our home. The royal family lives for these places." "I don't live for the royal family," Philip said curtly. "I am Philip Mountbatten, and I am a free man." This response deeply hurt Elizabeth. Just a few days ago they had promised each other until death. Now Philip was talking about his freedom. That night they slept in separate beds for the first time. Elizabeth was in tears, while Philip stayed on the balcony smoking until morning. The next morning, Philip's first rebellion began at breakfast. Palace protocol required breakfast to be eaten at 8 a.m. in silence. Philip was reading newspapers while making loud comments. "This protocol is ridiculous," Philip was saying. "A person can't even act natural in their own home." Elizabeth anxiously checked around. "Philip, the servants can hear. Please lower your voice." "Should I stay quiet so the servants don't hear? Am I a guest in this house too?" The palace staff could clearly hear this argument. Butler James Morrison later wrote in his memoirs about this moment. Prince Philip had started questioning the royal order from the first day. Princess Elizabeth was struggling greatly. Philip's real problem was an identity crisis. 4 days earlier, he was Prince Philip of Greece. Now he was being defined as the Queen's husband. This situation deeply wounded his masculine pride. On the third day, Philip told Elizabeth he wanted to have a serious conversation with her. "Elizabeth, I am not your sidekick," Philip said. "I am a man and I have my own personality." Elizabeth was trying to understand her husband. "No one is saying you're a side character, Philip." "No? Then why does every invitation say, 'Princess Elizabeth and spouse'? Why doesn't anyone ask for my opinion?" Elizabeth couldn't answer these questions because Philip was right. "Philip, you joined the royal family. We have rules." "I joined for love, Elizabeth, not for rules." These words deeply hurt Elizabeth. For the first time, she began to doubt her husband's love. But what was truly shocking was what Philip said to Elizabeth that evening. That evening at dinner, Philip didn't speak at all. He didn't even make eye contact with Elizabeth. When dinner ended, he stood up and prepared to leave. "Philip, where are you going?" Elizabeth asked. Philip turned and answered in a cold voice, "To be free. For at least a few hours." "You can't go out at this hour. There's a security protocol." "Elizabeth," Philip said, his tone ice cold, "I am not your servant. I thought I was your husband, but I was wrong. You wanted a queen. I wanted a man. This is incompatible." Elizabeth was shocked. "What do you mean?" "I realize this marriage was a mistake," Philip said. "You want royalty? I wanted marriage." These sentences destroyed Elizabeth's world. Just 3 days after the honeymoon, her husband was saying the marriage was a mistake. Philip really went out that night. Security guards followed him, but Philip didn't speak to anyone. He walked the streets of London for hours. Elizabeth was crying in her room. For the first time, she wondered whether being royal was more important than love. When Philip returned the next morning, the ice between them began to thaw. But the real war hadn't started yet, because the next day the bomb exploded over Philip's surname. In the morning, Philip told Elizabeth he wanted to discuss an important matter. "Elizabeth, what will our children's surname be?" he asked. Elizabeth was not prepared for this question at all. "Of course, Windsor. You're also Windsor now." Philip jumped up. "I am Mountbatten. I carry my father's surname." "But when you married, you joined the royal family. You're Windsor now." "I will not change my name, Elizabeth, and I want our children to carry the Mountbatten surname." This argument reached very serious proportions. Elizabeth was defending royal tradition, while Philip was defending his masculine right. "Philip, this is a matter of tradition. The royal surname has been protected this way for centuries. I have tradition too, Elizabeth. I am a man, and I want my children to carry my father's surname." This argument continued for days. Philip was very determined. Elizabeth was caught between tradition and royal advisors. This was exactly when everything changed. Because this surname war was not just an individual crisis, but a clash of two worldviews. Philip's perspective was very clear. "I married as a man. I came to be a husband, but here I'm seen only as a figure standing beside the Queen." Elizabeth thought differently. "I represent royal tradition. This tradition is greater than individual desires." These differences were reflected in their daily lives as well. Philip wanted to wake up in the morning and exercise. Royal protocol didn't allow this. "I run every morning," Philip would say. "A royal family member cannot run on the streets," Elizabeth would say. "Then I'll go to a gym." Royal protocol prohibits going to public gyms. Such small conflicts were constantly occurring. Philip wanted to play poker with his friends. Royal family members don't gamble. Philip wanted to speak his mind openly. Royal family members cannot express political opinions. Philip wanted to make friendships with ordinary people. Royal family members cannot make friendships outside protocol. There was a restriction on every matter. One day Philip spoke very openly to Elizabeth. "Elizabeth, I haven't become your husband. I seem to have become your prisoner." Elizabeth was very hurt when she heard these words. "Philip, I love you, but there are rules. Do you love the rules or me?" This question cornered Elizabeth. She couldn't answer. Philip's real problem was feeling worthless. Every decision was dependent on Elizabeth's approval. Every plan was determined by royal protocol. "I married as a man," Philip would tell his friends, "but I'm not allowed to act like a man." The incident that best illustrated this situation was the problem Philip had with the car. Philip wanted to drive the car himself. Royal protocol didn't allow this. "Why can't I drive my own car?" Philip asked. "There's a security risk," Elizabeth said. "Is the security risk in me or in controlling the car?" Elizabeth couldn't answer. Philip forcibly drove the car that day. Elizabeth was very worried. "Philip, what if something happens?" "Elizabeth, if I can't drive my own car, how free a man am I?" These questions were starting to make Elizabeth think. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet, because Elizabeth's secret crying moments changed her greatly. Nobody knew that Elizabeth sometimes woke up in the middle of the night crying. Only her loyal nanny, Margaret MacDonald, had noticed this. "Your Majesty, Is there a problem? Margaret had asked. Elizabeth hadn't answered for a long time. Then, Margaret, am I a good wife? Margaret was surprised. Of course, Your Majesty. But Philip seems unhappy. Maybe the adaptation process is difficult. What if he never adapts? This fear kept Elizabeth awake at night. Elizabeth was also experiencing her own identity crisis. She had grown up as Princess Elizabeth, but now she had to be both queen and wife. Which role am I more successful in, she would think? In royal duty or in marriage duty? This dilemma troubled her greatly. Philip was drowning in the depths of his own crisis. He had said this to his friend Michael Parker. Michael, I thought I got married, but it seems I've become part of the royal machine. This could be temporary, Philip. What if it isn't? What if I'm always referred to only as the Queen's husband? This thought greatly saddened Philip. Especially at social events, the humiliation Philip felt was enormous. He always stood behind Elizabeth. People would first talk to Elizabeth, then politely say a few words to Philip. I look ridiculous in these situations, Philip would say. It's as if I'm Elizabeth's accessory. To change this situation, Philip made some attempts. One day, Philip brought a proposal to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, I also want to take on some royal duties. After Elizabeth discussed this matter with her advisors, she returned. Philip, it's too early yet. You haven't fully learned royal protocol yet. This answer greatly hurt Philip. So I'm just going to be a figure standing beside you. No, Philip, but patience is needed. How much patience, Elizabeth? How long will I wait? Elizabeth couldn't answer this question either. Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. Because Philip's complaints to his male friends clarified the situation greatly. When Philip met with his old Navy friends, he openly complained. Boys, am I a married man, or am I a voluntary prisoner of the royal family? He had asked his friends. What do you mean, Philip? His friend David Milford Haven had asked. None of my decisions are my own decisions. Even what time I wake up in the morning isn't my decision. This could be temporary. It's not temporary, David. This is how the system works. I'm not a man here. I'm a royal accessory. If Elizabeth had heard these conversations, she would have been very upset. Philip was especially sensitive about one issue: financial independence. Elizabeth, how can I be a man without having my own money? He had asked. Elizabeth had tried to understand this matter too. Philip, you also have a royal allowance. The royal decision determines this allowance, not me. I want my own money. How will you do that? By working. Elizabeth was surprised. Royal family members don't work, Philip. That's wrong. Why can't I work? This argument also remained unresolved. Another big problem for Philip was his social circle. Elizabeth had her royal circle, while Philip had his own friends. Elizabeth, why do I have to constantly spend time with your royal friends? Because they are our social circle. I have friends too. I want to spend time with them too. But they're not considered appropriate in royal circles. According to whom are they not appropriate? From a protocol perspective. Protocol again. Philip was starting to hate this word. These tensions were especially experienced during dinner parties. Elizabeth would engage in royal conversation at formal invitations, while Philip tried to be natural. Elizabeth, you're talking like royalty here, and I want to talk like a normal person. Philip, we are royal representatives here. I want to be myself. Instead of being yourself, you should play your role. I don't want to play a role, Elizabeth. These arguments always ended in the same place: irresolution. What you've seen so far is nothing. Because Elizabeth's first major reconciliation attempt was very surprising. After a long conversation with Philip one night, Elizabeth made an important decision. She was ready to respond positively to some of Philip's requests. "Philip, you're right about some things," Elizabeth said. Philip was surprised. "About what things?" "You should feel independent as a man. I want that too." "Really?" "Yes. Let's make some changes." The changes Elizabeth proposed were: Philip could now determine his own schedule. Philip could spend time with his friends more freely. Philip could make some decisions without Elizabeth's approval. Philip could pursue his own hobbies. These proposals pleased Philip greatly. "Elizabeth, this is a very big step for you. Because your happiness is important to me. I want your happiness too." For the first time, there was an atmosphere of reconciliation. But this reconciliation wasn't easy, because royal advisors opposed Elizabeth's decisions. "Your Majesty, these precedents would damage royal protocol," said the chief advisor. "But my husband's happiness is also important," Elizabeth said. "Royal duty comes before individual happiness." These words made Elizabeth reconsider. When Philip learned of the advisor's opposition, he was very angry. "Elizabeth, will you listen to them again?" "Philip, they are experienced people." "I am your husband. What do they have to do with it?" Elizabeth was caught in a dilemma again. Finally, Elizabeth found a balanced solution. She increased some of Philip's freedoms, but also maintained royal rules. This compromise wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning. Philip was partially relieved. Elizabeth, everything isn't perfect, but it's getting better. Elizabeth was also pleased. "I'm learning too, Philip. Be patient." You won't believe it, but how these first wars shaped Elizabeth and Philip's marriage was very critical. The difficulties of this first year taught Elizabeth many things. She needed to balance royal duty with being a wife. She needed to understand Philip's masculine pride. Protocol couldn't be applied to everything. Both sides needed to make sacrifices in marriage. Philip also learned many things. Elizabeth's royal responsibility wasn't her choice, but her destiny. Adapting to the royal family would take time. He couldn't get everything he wanted immediately. Elizabeth had her own difficulties too. This mutual learning process laid the foundation for their marriage. Elizabeth would later say, "The first year was very difficult, but those difficulties forced us to understand each other." Philip expressed it this way: "In the first year, I tried to understand the royal family, and Elizabeth tried to understand me." This process wasn't easy, but as a result, they became a stronger couple. Because both had accepted that marriage wasn't just love, but a continuous process of compromise. Elizabeth learned that she had to balance between being a wife and being a royal member. Philip learned that he had to balance between individual freedom and family responsibility. After these balances were established, their marriage became healthier. But this was just the beginning, because they would experience bigger crises in the coming years. The wars of the first year had taught them how to deal with future crises. Elizabeth and Philip's marriage wasn't a fairy tale, but it showed that real love and respect could be built. This story teaches us, even the strongest marriages can have difficult beginnings. The important thing is being open to learning and growing together.